Welcome back to the workshop. In today's episode, we are finally building a chef's knife to give away. I said a long time ago that when we hit 250,000 followers, I was going to give away a chef's knife. And today is the day that we're going to take this piece of 380 layer Damascus and this beautiful piece of koa from my friend Jarrett at High Koa, and we are going to make a union of the two of them in the form of a cutting tool, specifically a brute de forge santoku. And if you're interested and would like a free knife, and would like to know how to enter into the giveaway, stick around until the end of the video. I'm very excited because I'll also be getting to use my Coal Ironworks induction forge in order to do the forging. It's very hot right now, and so I don't want to heat up anything else by turning on the forge. This will be a fun little experiment. I'm just going to forge it completely by hand, no power tools, just a little. All right, let's do it. Now, it's a very nice day for a little pipe smoke. I don't smoke anything except for pipe tobacco, but I really do like smoking a little pipe. It's just nice. Scrum diddly umptious. All right, the first step on this guy is, because this is kind of the end of the bar, what we're going to do is cut it off at a little bit of an angle to avoid that big smooge of MIG bead on the end there. No, we might hot cut it off pretty straight. I think that'll be the ticket. Oh. Righty-ho. That's about where we want our ricasso to be. It's a good width for a ricasso. Still plenty thick. So what we'll do now is kind of take a straight peen, a Jake Ferrum straight peen to this area, kind of start to lengthen that guy out a little bit, stretch out our tang, give something a little better to hang on to. This hammer right here was the first good hammer that I ever got. Jake Ferrum and I made this hammer when I was 17 years old. And it's been a favorite of mine ever since then. And I'll show you why it's really handy for this sort of thing. It really allows you to very linearly draw that material out. So whether it's on the top down or on the face, it just lets you get in there and really move some good material. Look at that. Got ourselves a tang in like one heat. Now I'm going to switch to these tongs. And these guys, these are the first second good pair of tongs I ever got. I got these from my friend Steve Howell, Ballard Forge on Instagram. Steve is one of the leading experts on rivets in the whole world, and he's the first blacksmith I ever met. Still a good friend of mine. Awesome dude. Great Instagram follow. I'm going to hang on to the tang with these bolt tongs. Very cool, classic, old-style bolt tongs. And we're going to start forging in our tip. So what's going to happen is, I didn't do a great job preforming this. That's going to do what we call a fish mouth. Those two corners right now are going to come together and kith. And I'm just going to hot cut them off on the edge of the anvil. It's a technique that I learned from my buddy Kurt Holland, and it works very well when you get that little fish mouthing on a tip, which is pretty common when you're forging from a big wide flat bar. You can avoid it, but it's really easier to do it this way. You kind of start to isolate that tip. Look at that, all gone. We want zero shmoo on this knife. And so now what I'll do is I'll start to thin out the edge here, kind of towards the tip where it's still at its full thickness. And from there, that's kind of our preform for the shape. I want to have a little bit of taper in it, not a ton, but I do want it to be thinner there than I do at the back. And the reason for that is because it cuts nicer when there's a distal taper. It means that it's still nice and firm. I don't love a ton of flex in my chef's knives anymore, but it still cuts nice because it's nice and thin out towards the tip, which is where you do a lot of the lighter work and you do the heavier stuff back towards the heel of the knife. One of the things we're going to be doing is drawing our heel kind of backwards a little bit. We might have to do a little work in the bench vise to get that transition nice and crispy, but that's where we're going from here. Oh, I love this vise so much. It truly is a swell piece of machinery. This hammer came from the Anaconda Mine blacksmith shop, and it's the only hammer on my rack that was not forged by a friend of mine. I'm going to swap to a round coil to see if that heats up the blade any faster. I'm so inexperienced forging a knife out of one of these that I want to figure out what does best. It's like magic.
It really is.
It's actually insane. What's interesting that I didn't think about this is that with normal forging, you have like a little bit of downtime while the blade heats up, but here you're like constantly occupied. And so there's no time to check on Instagram. Instagram thinks I'm a human trafficker, by the way, guys. I posted 2 knives, and the first one they took down for child inappropriate exploitation. And then I was like, hey, this is just me holding a chef's knife. And then the second one, they suspended my account for worry of slave trading. And then after they restored my account, when they figured out that actually I wasn't a slave trader, they still took down the post for human exploitation, which I assume means like slavery or something. The AI algorithm has been just wreaking havoc on knife makers on Instagram. I think I'm going to do a whole video about it soon, kind of get the opinion of a couple other knife makers who have been really affected by it. Instagram is no longer a friendly platform for us knife people. Man, I'm really missing my power tools right now. That boy be needing him a couple of scritches. Quick archery break. Money. Touching. So I'm pretty new to archery. Is it a thing that if you like set your bow down and like bumps the rest, that it'll like knock it over? Because like I'm getting pretty good groups, but they're almost always, look at those. Those two are kissing, literally. Wow, them fellers are touching. But it's like just a little to the left. It's frustrating. I've adjusted it to the right a couple different times now, but I think for a while I was setting my bow down on the sight, and I think that it was bumping it off in the direction that sending my arrows to the left. Look at that, right back to it. Neat. Oh! All right, so now that we've got our kind of rough shape done, we've got our bevels kind of forged in where it's thicker at the spine, thinner at the edge, still a little bacony, little warped. I'm gonna work on my tang area, kind of the heel a little bit, get it crispened up on the edge of the anvil, get this little nub schmooshed back where it's supposed to be. And then we'll do kind of our final forging and flattening and all that junk and move on to grinding. All right, about 200 at the ricasso, about 140 at the top. You know, I was planning on making this brute to forge, but it's thick enough and it's at the shape where I want it to be that I might forge in a little bit of patterning and then make it clean, because it is Damascus. It'll be a nice pattern. Something really interesting about forging out of the induction forge is that it hardly scales up at all. Like, it does a little bit, but you don't get that thick, heavy scale that's like jumping off at you like you do in a gas forge. And I think part of it is that you can't like leave it for as long, and so you're very attentive, and so it's not just sitting there scaling up. But I don't know, it's kind of nice. I'm going to do one more heat of kind of filling in the areas that I missed, and then I'm actually going to let it cool down and grind off this side. See, if I were going to go and put this texture on the other side, it would wash out a lot of that. But if I go and grind it off and then texture the other side, then it'll be fine. All right, I'm now going to forge out my tang just a little bit longer. Doesn't need to be a whole lot longer. This is honestly probably fine, but I'd rather have less width and more length just because. I gotta say, it sure is nice to just hand forge out a knife. I feel like technology just ruins forging, you know? It's like whenever you use technology, it just wrecks it, right? Now, this looks terrible right now. I understand that. However, my actual shoulders are going to be like right here. And so I still have room to make this a nice transition. Y'all can quit worrying. I'm going to leave that as is. Flip around, give this blade a couple of normalizing cycles. That makes it more normal. All right, now that the knife has been hardened and tempered, I did 2 cycles at 375 degrees, which should leave it a little bit harder, which is kind of what I like for a kitchen knife like this. We're going to go in. First thing we're going to do is profile the knife. Edge, back here, in there, get the choil nice and comfy. And then from there, we're going to move on to belts, grinding in our bevels. I'm going to do kind of a no plunge line grind on this, just kind of have everything flow. I'm going to be doing a convex grind, and so it won't be flat. I don't really like flat grinds on a chef's knife. It's not an optimal grind. What I want to have is a small contact area where it's actually cutting. So I want to have a flat right at the edge and kind of flow it in and have it be rounded behind that. I really like the feel of that cutting performance. On a chef's knife, I find that it reduces the friction of the cut and it helps things fall off of the side of the knife while you're cutting with good food release. As I started doing my rough grinding on the flats of the blade, I noticed something, and that is that this guy picked up a little bit of a warp, kind of dishes out like that. And in the last couple of years, there's been a really popular method sorted out for fixing warps, and that's taking a carbide-tipped hammer. What you do is you tap on the side that's dished in. So right now on this side of the knife and straighten it back out. Right now it's dished, well, pretty good. Nice. Back in the grinding room. All right, now that I'm done on the disc sander, I can move on to hand sanding. We call it hand sanding because you're sanding by hand. I'm just gonna sand at 400 grit. I'm going to leave it there. I think that will be just right for this pattern. Doesn't need to be a super high polish because of how dense this pattern is. And so we're gonna go all the way around, first sanding on the flats and then sanding on the spine and choil. I'm not gonna do my absolute final finish yet. I'm gonna wait to do that until after I have the handle done. I just want it to be nice and clean so that I can move on to grinding in my tang profile. All right, now that our blade is done, our tang is profiled and tapered, I need to stick this into this block of koa. The way that I like to do this when I do a non-integral knife, especially if I'm going to do something that's like kind of like just a solid block, is I'll take a slice, usually about 5/8 of an inch off the top, and then I'll throw a spacer in between that top piece and the bottom piece. It allows me to get into the top with an end mill, which makes fitting this a lot faster, and then it also allows me to get all the way down. It's really hard to find a really small drill bit, like a 3/32 drill bit, that'll go down, 3.5 inches. And so it allows me to fit the bottom of the block very easily and fit the top of the block and then throw another fun piece of material in there. Well, after some very serious debate, I've landed on using some emerald paper micarta. So what I'll do, rather than having koa, spacer, koa, is I will do a solid emerald bolster and then koa after that. Kind of achieve the same effect where you have the ability to drill down into the longer block with the koa, but then this is still a nice thin piece, and so it'll fit up easier because we'll be able to use that nice thin end mill. So my process for drilling the hole in my handle is I get my center line marked up, so I know where the edge of my tang wants to be, I know where the center of my block is, and then I know where the center of the tang is. I then mark the center of the tang by lining up my tang on the block on the outside, and that allows me to figure out where the center of it is down at the bottom, where it's going to sit down at the bottom of the hole. Then what I do is I scribe a line between the center line at the top and the center line at the bottom and use a machinist square to get that feller plumb. After that, all I need to do is drill down from the top, and I've got my perfectly centered hole, and then I can go back in with a broach after the hole is drilled and file it out perfectly. Now that I've got it fitted up, that's good. It goes all the way down, but it's a little bit loose. And since I'm going to be working on it, I don't want it to be loose. I want it to have a good fit, and so I'm going to bed the tang. So what I've done is I've coated the tang and the top of this and the bottom of that bolster material with some paste wax. And now what I can do is fill up the tang slot with some epoxy and then let that set, and then I can pull it out because there will be, there's that paste wax on there. And so I might need to do a little bit of heat, but fortunately now I've got my induction forge, and so I can heat up the tang even when it is inside of the handle. Very neat. All right, it is now bedded. I'm gonna try and pull it apart cold without stabbing myself in the face. Got myself in the shoulder a little bit there.
Did you really?
Yeah, just a little bit. It's all right. On to the old banded saw. We're going to cut in the rough profile of our handle and then go into the grinding room and get everything looking scrum-diddly-umptious in there. All right, now that we've got the handle at 1,000 grit, not only did I go up to 1,000 grit, but I also wet sanded at 1,000 grit with some alkanet oil. This is a South African root oil. It's kind of like true oil, but it's got a little bit of red root junk in there. Anyway, it looks really nice. So this is at 1,000 grit. It's ready to be buffed. I do need to chamfer the top of the emerald paper just to make it a little bit more comfortable. Next step is going to be popping this feller apart and actually doing our final finish on the blade and then doing our etching. And so for my etching, I like to go into ferric chloride. I like to use a weak ferric chloride, let it get a little bit of a topography in the blade through the ferric etching. After that, I like to take it out, scrub it down with some 4,000 grit pink micro mesh. From there, I go into some gator piss. Sorry about that name. I'm so sorry that I had to say that. But what that does is it sets up a really nice oxide for coffee etching. And so from there, I take it out, spray it down, wipe it off, and then from there I go into a 3-to-1 cold mixed instant coffee mixture. This is the method that I've been using for the last handful of knives, and it's worked out well. It is super spotty, so if you try it and it doesn't work for you, I'm so sorry, but that's just how it goes. Well, that's it. The knife's done. I'm super stoked, and I actually like it so much that I'm just going to keep it for myself. I know I said I was going to give it away, but too bad. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going to give it away. It's a 6.5-inch cutting edge, 11.5 inches overall, just a touch shy of 2 inches tall at the heel, 380 layer random pattern Damascus, beautiful chunk of koa on the handle from my buddy Jarrett at High Koa. Nice chunk of vintage emerald paper from Hawk's Nest Customs. This thing's going to be a machine in the kitchen. Great all-around kitchen knife. I think this is a really nice size for the vast majority of people. There's kind of a trend for longer kitchen knives, but honestly, I think that this is kind of like where it's at. It's fine. And the way that you can enter to win this is by going onto my website, going to the newsletter page, which is at the top, and entering your email into the newsletter. The reason why I'm doing it that way and not another way is because I'm starting a new business, which is all very much this related, and so I want to have your emails for marketing purposes. I'm just going to spam you with emails. There's nothing you can do to get out of it. I'm just kidding. I don't have the attention span or the typing skills to spam anybody with emails. It will be very occasional, big things only. I really don't have the attention span to do more than like a couple emails a year probably. And then on July 21st, I will take that list of emails and I will assign a random number to each of them and then put it into a random number generator, and voila, we will have our winner. Whoever it is in the world, as long as they are over the age of 18, not that that's verifiable in any way on the internet, whoever it is will get the knife. I'll ship it to you wherever you are in the world. So That's all kinds of good fun. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this process. I'm very stoked on how this thing came out. Just a blast to make a nice, kind of more straightforward, simple kitchen knife every now and again. Just a straight up beautiful tool for the kitchen. What a treat. So if you guys like knife making and machine restoration and that type of thing, then go ahead and like and subscribe, or do one or the other. Don't do both. That would just be obnoxious, and I don't care for it. I won't allow it. It's not okay. I'm just kidding. You can do both if you want. It's a free country. At least here it is in America. Sorry, it's late at night right now for me. For you guys, it might not be. But anywho, thank you to our patrons for patronizing us, and I will see you guys on the next one. Bye-bye.